President Trump is wrapping up day 2 of his first trip overseas. His first stop, Saudi Arabia. There he called on the country's Muslim leaders to help fight what he called a crisis of Islamic terrorism. He said the burden is on Muslim nations to drive Islamic extremists out. Trump also condemned Iran for supporting terrorism in the Middle East and backing Syrian President Bashar Assad's forces.
There is still much work to be done. That means honestly confronting the crisis of Islamic extremism and the Islamists and Islamic terror of all kinds. We must stop what they're doing to inspire, because they do nothing to inspire but kill.
The president fell short of using the words radical Islamic terrorism, something he's condemned President Barack Obama for failing to do in 2015. The speech wasn't the only notable moment of Trump's visit. Saudi Arabia's defense minister announced $280 billion in agreements with the U.S.
We should not see this as a one event-driven, a summit-driven, transaction-based. This is truly a partnership between the two nations.
$110 billion of those dollars will go toward an arms deal. President Trump heads to Israel next. Ahead of that visit, Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu is expressing concerns over that arms deal with Saudi Arabia. While the Israeli leader says the people will welcome Trump with open arms, he also says his country needs to make sure its long-term interests aren't harmed. Bibi Netanyahu called Saudi Arabia a hostile country without any diplomatic relations today. The president will be in Jerusalem and Bethlehem over the next couple of days.
While President Trump continues that trip overseas, Congress is searching for answers in that investigation of allegations of Russian involvement in the 2016 election. A special counsel is heading that investigation, and here's NBC's Jennifer Johnson with the latest out of Washington.
President Trump on his first overseas trip as Washington digs further to find out what he said to Russian diplomats about firing FBI Director James Comey, who was investigating possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Leaders of the House Oversight Committee want to see notes of that Oval Office meeting.
There have been so many lies, so many contradictions, and I think documents will help us to ferret out exactly what's the truth and what's a lie.
Reports say in that meeting, President Trump allegedly called Comey a nut job and that firing him took pressure off about Russia. Comments even Republicans can't defend.
I'm almost speechless because I don't know why someone would say something like that.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who was there, remembers it differently.
I think what the president was trying to convey to the Russians is, look, I'm not going to be distracted by all these issues that are here home.
While others in the Oval Office aren't commenting.
Those meetings, as you know, are supposed to be privileged. They're supposed to be confidential.
Comey may be just days away from breaking his silence after being fired by the president. The House Oversight Committee has invited the former FBI director to testify Wednesday. Jennifer Johnson, NBC News, Washington.
And former FBI Director James Comey has agreed to testify in front of Congress. That will happen after Memorial Day. U.S. and South Korean officials say North Korea fired another missile earlier today. This time they say it was a medium-range missile. It flew about 310 miles east and landed in the sea. That prompted South Korea to call an emergency national security meeting. According to the White House, the range of the missile system is shorter than North Korea's most recent tests. More than 50 days of protests rage on in Venezuela. People are taking to the streets to protest the country's government. Turmoil in the South American nation has left at least 46 people dead. Protesters want President Nicolas Maduro out. They blame him for soaring inflation, human rights violations, and shortages of food and medicine.
A group of Greyhound bus passengers found themselves stranded in Gypsum for 4 hours this morning. Police officers say its driver took too much medicine to stay alert. The bus was traveling from Grand Junction to Denver when riders began complaining of erratic driving through Glenwood Canyon. According to riders, the driver became combative and pulled the bus over, threatening to call police and have the riders arrested. When police came, they ordered the driver off the bus so another one could finish the trip.
Well, the bus was going very fast through the Glenwood Canyon. I mean, it was like swerving. It was going back and forth between the lanes, and people were actually being flung in the bus.
Most unprofessional job of a Greyhound driver I've been riding Greyhound for almost 40 years, and I've never seen a driver even come close to acting like this right here.
The rider who first asked the driver to slow down says he was kicked off the bus in Denver and banned from riding Greyhound in the future. Greyhound says it is cooperating with police and conducting its own investigation. Rivaling groups of protesters clashed at a North Carolina courthouse over the weekend. Dozens gathered in Alamance County to honor Confederate Memorial Day as part of the group Act Back NC. The service is meant to honor fallen Confederate ancestors. A group of counter-protesters formed across the street holding Black Lives Matter signs. The celebration comes as several cities in the South removed monuments to Confederate leaders.
Dozens of graduates at Notre Dame walked out of their own commencement ceremony today in protest of the speaker, Vice President Mike Pence. As soon as Pence was introduced, a group stood up and walked away. The only reason that Pence was there in the first place is because thousands of students signed a petition to keep President Trump from speaking at this ceremony. So Pence was the second choice. Reasons for the walkout ranged from immigration to LGBT rights. A more than century-old American tradition is now over. Today's last day for the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. The company that owns the circus says declining sales and battles with animal rights groups are the reasons for the shutdown. Their last show is happening right now in Uniondale, New York. Animal rights activists call this a victory. The company says that animals owned by the show's presenters will go home with them. They're still trying to figure out what to do with those other animals. Ahead on 9 News at 5, a race beside the race at Preakness has people running all across the tops of porta potties.
We'll talk about it. And a group of thrill seekers in Texas got a little more than they bargained for when their ride stopped in the middle of a thunderstorm.
Like us, Alaska has legal pot, but they couldn't really celebrate that fact outside the way they wanted to until this year. This weekend marked the first Cannabis Classic in Anchorage. They took some ideas out of the Colorado playbook, brought some food, some vendors, some music. Now, despite legal pushback, organizers say marijuana is in Alaska to stay.
But I think you see, every year more, rules and regulations that allow the industry to kind of act in a way in which they want to behave.
Now in its third year of legalization, again, this is the first time Alaska has really been able to have an event like this outside. People at a marina off the southern coast of California got an unexpected visitor and a pretty amazing show. This humpback whale somehow got stuck in between a couple of docks at the Ventura Harbor near LA. Crews tried to corral that 35-foot-long whale back into more friendly waters. They didn't have any luck, though. They're hoping that that whale is going to figure out how to get back to the ocean on its own when there's less people around, less excitement, attention,
Yeah, hate to see that big creature out there. Hope it finds its way home. It's one thing to get stuck on the top of a roller coaster. It is another thing entirely to get stuck on top of a roller coaster in the middle of a thunderstorm. The high school seniors got on the new Joker coaster at Six Flags in Dallas at a little after midnight. And once they were aboard, about 12 stories off the ground, the ride came to a sudden stop. Emergency crews were able to rescue all 8 people on the ride. A spokeswoman for Six Flags says the sensors on the ride picked up strong headwinds and automatically stopped the ride at a safe location. The horses weren't the only to run in Baltimore this weekend. Oh my goodness. Thoroughbreds stuck to the track for the Preakness Stakes while the humans did whatever the heck this is on the infield. It's a race on top of porta potties. Apparently a Preakness tradition. I hope the ambulance is standing by. That guy fell like 3 or 4 times there. I'm going to assume he's a few beverages deep, too. As for the actual race, the favorite to win, Always Dreaming, faded early, and Cloud Computing took home the win and a cool $900,000. This guy took home a few bumps and bruises.
A little girl in Canada narrowly avoided a nightmare when a sea lion mistook her dress for food. A video shows the girl sitting on the back of a dock. You saw it right there. And the sea lion just jumps up and grabs her and pulls her under the water. Now this guy jumps in, tries to save her, and it's not clear if they know one another, if they had come together, but certainly a hero in that man. And that little girl obviously shaken up, but a pretty terrifying moment. One thing, animal rights activists really want people to know is that these are wild animals. They're not pets out in the ocean. I mean, you're from Southern California, Ryan. You know that this is...
You see the seals around all the time, and you want to really give them their space. It's so important. So when you see an animal like that pop its head out of the water, yeah, it's cute, but you don't know what's coming next.
Well, it's sort of like the problem we have here with elk. I mean, it's really cool to see them in the wild, and you might want to get up close, but they are wild animals. So
give them their distance. All right, you had a lot of thoughts about the snow this weekend and about a mall that got shut down because of all that hail.
You also had a lot to say about some firefighters bringing kindness to the community. Kim Christensen covers all of that in this week's 9 Listens.
It would have been tough for the hundreds of people who came out here for graduation ceremonies.
Just when gardens are planted and graduates are ready to celebrate, Mother Nature decides to test our flexibility. The storm this week sidelined many outdoor plans and brought down some of spring's finest. Driving around Fort Collins today was crazy. We were constantly changing lanes to avoid huge broken off tree limbs. The slush was so thick, people were hydroplaning all over the place. Others didn't mind it. Love Colorado. A week away from summer break and we get lovely snow. Also, we have more sun and wonderful blue skies than most. We are blessed. Where can you ski in the morning and golf in the afternoon, or hike, bike, swim? Love our state. Body camera video shows the quick decision made by a Douglas County deputy who stopped when he saw a vehicle on the side of the road. The driver was standing by, pointing a rifle at the deputy. He fired. The suspect was injured. One comment: great job on the officer's part, staying alert and aware. I am so happy he is unharmed. This is what our officers put up with every day, never knowing what a routine traffic stop is going to turn into, or if it's going to be their last day on the job.
Colorado Mills is going to remain closed this week as well.
Mall madness of a different kind in Lakewood. A hailstorm shut down Colorado Mills Mall more than a week ago, and no one knows when it will reopen. Many of you question why the damage is so extensive. Who dropped the ball and wasn't doing regular structural inspections anyway? The mall isn't that old, but it's been around long enough for other storms that caused previous damage, leading to this catastrophe.
Talk about going above and beyond.
Finally, let's hear it for firefighters. North Metro crews had to evacuate a daycare in Broomfield, and they kept the little ones in the back of a paramedic unit wrapped up in blankets to stay warm. How adorable are the babies and firefighters. And West Metro Fire helped a little boy who sent a message to his mom in heaven with a balloon, and it got tangled in the trees. How sweet that is. It is very touching that the firemen could help. Wish all people realize how nice it is to help someone in need, even if it is something little. Thanks for your comments, and remember 9 Listens.
Let us know what stories got you talking. We welcome all of your comments at KUSA@9news.com.
Yeah, you can also call us or you can send us a message on Facebook. We always look forward to hearing from you and getting your comments. Coming up in sports, a unique high school graduation ceremony.
And 2 historic home runs for the Rockies. Rod's next.